This is David Calder here again for the second part of our sustainability update from SAP. So in the first part, what we did is we looked at what is SAP's purpose, which is to help the world run better and improve people's lives. I then also looked at what SAP is as an exemplar. And also now what we're going to look for at in depth is what we're doing from an enabler perspective. How are we helping our customers to better report on and do their sustainability? So that's we've divided into three main sections. So zero emissions, zero waste, and zero inequality. But to bring this all together with a holistic steering and reporting perspective. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to go through in greater depth. What I did on the previous presentation was to just give you an update of these three columns and how they come together from a reporting perspective. What's important to note here is that what we're talking about is the products that we have to help organizations do their sustainability and report on their sustainability activities. So their ESG, environment, social, and governance. And these are standard reporting formats, and I'll show you later. What I'm not covering here is all the activities that an organization is doing from their sustainability initiatives. So what I've often heard people say is, this is the 2020s is going to be the decade of action from an environmental perspective. I actually think the 2020s are going to be the decade of innovation, because companies have so much innovation that they need to do, because there's a whole new set of requirements from their customers and new customers who are looking at the world through an innovation, through a sustainability lens. They want to have products that are more sustainable. They want to deal with an organization that is behaving in a more sustainable way. So what I'm not covering is all those innovations that companies are doing that SAP supports with our standard set of products, okay, and with our innovation. So happy to discuss those on a separate separate call. That's no problem at all. But what I want to focus on here is what tools we have from a ESG perspective. Right, so let's go into this. So the first one is this product footprint management. And what we're doing here is giving organizations the ability to determine to help them what their scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions are, to be able to report that and to be able to have that on a product level. Because going forward, what we see happening is the organizations making procurement decisions on not just price and the technical components of a product, but also from the CO2 equivalent part of a product. So there will be a third dimension when companies are evaluating and customers are evaluating a product. So how do we do this? So what we're looking at is to enable the environmental footprint management in an automated process from a corporate goal setting perspective. So the organization's goal is to reduce their CO2 emissions using their end-to-end processes and operations down to a fine granular level. Okay, so let's go through. Let me show you in detail what we're doing here. So we're taking these business processes that you do, design to operate, lead to cash, source to pay, record to report. And we're extracting the data of what materials you have there, and then also including what is your sustainability content. So we get that from how you measure, what measurements you have internally, and sometimes you buy data that tells you what that information is. You then assess that with this data and what your product information, and then you calculate the footprint of a specific product. And then you push that back into SAP so that that data can be used in the other SAP processes. And lastly, you also then want to be able to do analytics on that. So if I can show you how this is from a product perspective. So the first part is we acquire that data from this set of processes, and we pull that set of data in to this cloud. This is a cloud app on BTP. We acquire that data. We also then determine what is the emissions factors management. So we get that data from what your emissions management is. We then calculate the footprint. Okay, and then the fourth part is the looking at it from a product perspective. We calculate it by product. And then the fifth part is we put that back into SAP to be able to be used in these business processes. So that's the first product. The second product is emissions management. So if we look here, this is emissions management. So what we want to be able to do is to manage and collect all the emissions that an organization has. And this is either from manual entry, bulk upload from external systems, or real-time collection from building management systems, from production systems, to be able to collect what are a company's emissions, collect it, to then aggregate it and calculate it to determine what are your emissions, and then to be able to provide that to your ESG reporting, but also importantly to provide the insights and optimization to be able to determine how do different plants compare. Why is this office has a much lower emission than that office? How do we reduce that? How does it compare to benchmarks? Okay, so that's what emissions management covers. The next one is a very interesting one called sustainability travel. So what we have is a product called Concur, and that helps you do your expenses, your travel expenses. So today, when I enter my travel expense, what that has is a financial dimension. I have a number of expenses. I enter them into the system. I catch a taxi, a flight. Well, I used to catch a flight. And then I get reimbursed that money. But going forward, what we have to do is we have to actually capture the CO2 equivalent of that trip. Because if a company has the goal to be carbon neutral, you need to capture at the detail level what are the carbon expenditure of the employees. Okay, so that's what Concur will help you do. So that was zero emissions, zero waste. Okay, so this is a product that is coming out early next year. It's in beta testing at the moment, so responsible design and production. So this is about sustainable packaging reporting and extended producer responsibility. So what we're doing is a company needs to be able to report on and know exactly what is in their packaging because of this concept of extended producer responsibility. They are responsible for the product, the packaging of the product when it goes to recycling. The two products we have available at the moment in this pillar is rural sourcing. And one of those is reimagining how you work with your small stakeholders. So one of the sets of stakeholders for companies are either small farmers, or in some organizations, you have plastic pickers, you have rubbish collectors, and you need a way to communicate with this group of stakeholders in a way to, how do you get information to them? How do you pay them? How do you communicate with them? And so SAP's built a tool to be able to do this. So it has a smartphone app that you can communicate with this group of stakeholders. You internally then also have a way of managing the web app, and you have some desktop features that you can run in-house. Okay, so this is again an important part of sustainability is you have a different and an enlarged set of stakeholders. How do you communicate with them? How do you send information? How do you make their their way of dealing with your organization much easier and much more transparent. Okay, so the next one is supplier risk management. One of the important things is knowing what the sustainability footprint of your suppliers is. So it doesn't, what organizations are finding is they do very good work, but if they have a supplier who has a very bad environmental or ESG footprint, that reputation gets passed to you. And there have been numerous occasions on this. So you might remember there was a factory collapse in the Bangladesh clothing factory. What many brands didn't realize is that they were outsourcing supply production to these companies that weren't behaving in a sustainable manner. So what SAP has done is worked with EcoVadis to actually help you to better manage this process. And as you can see, there are many opportunities on the procurement process where you need to have a view of what your suppliers are and what is their sustainability footprint looking like. Okay, so we have that connection from the procurement process connecting to EcoVadis, and they then collect the data and pass the data back to you. The next part from the zero inequality perspective is protecting your people. So the one thing that we have here is environmental health and safety. So managing the safety of your employees to make sure that they are safe. Okay, so one of the things is incident management. So you're making sure that no one has accidents. I came across a large company called BP recently, and they use incident management as a training tool as well. So they enter their incidents, but then they also use that as a training tool. So I'm going to go, I've got a work order I'm going to execute, and then I see who else has had similar work orders and whether they have had any incidents. So to keep your employees safe. When you're managing chemicals, you need to manage them in a specific way to make sure there's a process from a safety perspective. Okay. When we also look at management of change, when we change a work process, there's a certain way it needs to be done so that we keep our employees safe. And also the maintenance safety perspective and the permit to work. So where you're dealing with either electricity or high pressure steam, you want to make sure that the work area where an employee goes is safe and secure, and then they can do their activities there. And then the last piece is then being able to report on all these. So to be able to report on all your ESG, environment, governance, and social. So SAP has a tool, profitability and performance management, and it comes with a number of templates. So one of the templates is GRI, which is a sustainability set of reporting that is relatively widely used. But what it helps you not only do is to do this reporting, but also then to do this analysis to compare different sites. So if you might have in this map, they've got a number of sites around the world, but if you've got a number of sites in Thailand, what you can then do is to say, well, how do my different sites compare from a number of injuries versus the number of employees perspective? Okay. What it also lets you do is do what if scenario. Okay. So if we change our recycling portion, you can use this bar here to change that, and then you get to see what the effect is here. So what we profitability and performance management. What we see is a number of companies are able to do great reports, but they collect done annually, and so it's very much a manual. The new way of doing sustainability reporting is to be able to do it quarterly, if not monthly, because there's so much riding on collecting this data and reporting on it, maybe internally only. And so what you need to be able to do is have tools to collect this data. And some of it is in SAP, and some of it's not in SAP, but you want to be able to have a tool to collect it. You want to then collect it, transform it, build it into your sustainability model, and then do that reporting. So, for example, whether you're using GRI, so there's a GRI template, there's a SASB template, whether you're using EU taxonomy. So there's different formats that we see being required by the organization. So you can't really do it manually anymore. But also you'll see these BRSR is an Indian national format, ACSI and NGE are both Australian formats. So it depends on where your company is operating. There are different country formats as well that need to be done. And this is just, there'll be Thai formats that you need to be able to meet. So having a tool that you can collect this data, SAP and non-SAP data, and be able to report this in a much more regular fashion is really important for sustainability and just the requirement today. So SAP also has a new tool being released in December called the Sustainability Control Tower, and that will give you additional reporting flexibility. So some value propositions here: simpler data collection, holistic reporting, and steering in one place, and one version of the truth. So how to engage? So SAP has a number of service packages to help this process. There's a number of places to get continuous information, and there's a number of links here. So in the interest of time, I'll have to end there, but look forward to hearing from you if you have more questions. Thanks very much.